What's up, Wall fans, Common Sensors, social media world, podcast consumers? Welcome to the live feed for Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, and this is episode 35. I'm, of course, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and after a week off, we are back, and we got all kinds of great stuff to talk about this week. So that being said, let's get into episode 35.
1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, Wall fans, Common Sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to episode 35 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. I'm, of course, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and we've got an action-packed show for you this week. As always, we had a week off last week for Super Bowl. I just took it off, and weirdly, some other stuff happened that we're going to get into. Not a big deal, but I might not have even been able to record we'll get into that. But usually, when we do have a week off, we come back and just kind of all over the place. So we're going to try to keep it on the rails, but as you know, there's never a guarantee of that happening here at Go Tell It to the Wall. But of course, before we get into all that stuff, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, for episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's our official Facebook page. Make sure you like that page, check back off, and that's going to keep you updated on all new content, new episodes, all that good stuff. And of course, YouTube. Head over to YouTube, search Go Tell It to the Wall, subscribe to our channel. That's where you're going to find all of our videos. Our live feeds get posted after video feeds. A little Freudian slip there. We're going to talk about live feeds in this episode. But the video feeds all get posted up there. Used to be live feeds, beer reviews, parenting playlists, mental health Mondays. All those playlists live right there on YouTube, so make sure you're subscribed and get notifications when new video content is posted on there. Of course, you can follow my personal Instagram, which is SoCalSean. That's right, at SoCalSean. Follow that, please. All kinds of great stuff on Instagram. I'm a big-time Instagram user, I think. I've turned into more and more of an Instagram user. I use Facebook, but a lot of my Facebook usage is like groups, you know. But Instagram has kind of become my scrolling, like, hey, that's a cool picture. I also find myself getting into these, and this is a little tangented already here, I get into these deep holes of looking at vans on Instagram. It's funny, my wife will come in the room and I'm like scrolling through like on Instagram, like, these are cool. Like, look at these. Like, not really going to go get, just, cool, hard to find vans on Instagram. I find myself doing that a lot. And of course, SeanO'RourkeLive.com, our official website for everything that is Go Tell It to the Wall and Sean O'Rourke Live. SeanO'RourkeLive.com. You're also going to find a link to our Patreon campaign right on there. You're going to find photos you won't find anywhere else, blog posts, all kinds of good stuff. And also a link to our merch website. So pick up some Go Tell It to the Wall merch. You need some common sense fashion, clothing. I don't know. Fashion, it's not really fashion. I'm not a very fashionable person. I don't know why I'm using that word. It's clothing. Common sense clothing. And of course, you're going to find links to all those things I mentioned on SeanO'RourkeLive.com. So if you remember nothing else, just remember SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Click directly on the YouTube link, the Facebook link, the page, all the good stuff right there on SeanO'RourkeLive.com. All right. I've been talking about it for a while and finally pulled the trigger. We officially have a new computer here in the studio. Not officially hooked up yet. This is why we're not live streaming this episode. We should now have the capabilities of live streaming. Should not be a problem. It's just a matter of I haven't been able to reset everything in the studio, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. It's a thing of beauty. I picked up a brand new Surface. It's literally 4 times as fast as my current Surface. We're going to talk more about that as we get into some common sense. But look forward to that. Finally, a new machine here in the studio. Going to give us a lot more capabilities and a lot more awesome content coming. It's been a bit of a reconfigure everything, and I'll talk a little bit about that in common sense because it's been a bit of an adventure regarding some things and getting a new computer. And of course, I have to mention happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. That's right. It is Valentine's Day. Unless you've been ignoring social media today, you've probably seen tons and tons of, here's my Valentine's. I didn't do one of those for my wife. Maybe I will. I probably won't. I tend to do this for like our anniversary and stuff. It's like everybody's doing this on Valentine's Day. Get on that boat or no. Probably not. My wife knows I love her. And it's funny, the way that I spend my Valentine's days, and my wife and I, our plans actually didn't change this year. I am one of those people that prefers to not go out on Valentine's Day. And my wife and I have been together for like a little over 8 years, I think. And really, from the very beginning, she also agreed, like, nah, I don't like going out on Here's the thing. You go out on Valentine's Day, you're overpaying for food that tends to not be that good. It's a fixed menu. It's crowded. It's just madness. And I've always said to my wife, I'd rather take you to like 10 nice dinners throughout the year than one Valentine's Day dinner. So what I do is I cook for my wife. Tonight I will be making some steaks. We're going to have some steaks and baked potatoes. And that's how we celebrate Valentine's Day. So it's funny, with not being able to really go out much, it doesn't change our plans because that's what we do is stay home. I don't like dealing with the crowds and all this other junk. And so just a nice dinner at home, exchange some gifts. I've actually, in this closet behind me, I got my wife's gifts. I'm going to pull them out, and my daughter's Valentine's Day gift, and I'm going to pull them out after I finish recording and give those. And that's how we spend our Valentine's Day. It's funny for me because Valentine's Day has very often been this extremely consumeristic holiday. I mean, when I was a kid, you'd get like little Valentine's Day cards in school and stuff. And when I was in high school, we had these candygram things, which was extra funny because I ended up not, like, someone would have to collect mine when I was in high school because and friends, so that's not like I was a super popular guy and all the girls were sending me. No. Friends would send them and stuff. But I would have to have someone else collect them because when I was a teenager, when I was in high school, and even before that, my family owned a candy store. So this is why Valentine's Day is very consumeristic. It is to everybody, but really to me, it meant that I was working and my family was making some extra money. I actually, my entire high school career, never went to school on Valentine's Day because I had to work at the candy store on Valentine's Day. So if Valentine's Day fell on a weekday, I didn't go to school. I took the day off and worked at the candy store as just madness coming through a candy store. And I don't know if it's still that way these days because you can order so much stuff online and everything else and, whatever. I'm sure the florists still do quite well. And in fact, I had a good friend of mine in high school, still a good friend today, and fan of the podcast, hey, Matt, whose family owned a florist. His family were florists, and he never went to school on Valentine's Day. So that's kind of the relationship I have with Valentine's Day. Is I prefer, I don't mind celebrating it. It's just I'm not going to go out and spend silly money and crowds and not as great a food fix. Yeah, just not for me. I mean, you do you, but that is not for me. All right, now that we've gotten tangented a couple times already, it's going to be one of those shows, Wall fans. It's all right, though. All right, some digital trends stuff going on the digital platforms right now. I've talked about this a few times over the past few episodes, but this is going to finally put it to bed. Gina Carano. She's finally been officially fired from The Mandalorian. She will not be continuing on any Disney series or anything along those lines. And we're now getting, and I don't want to unpack this too much, we're now getting word that maybe some Disney execs have been looking for a reason to let her go since like December when a lot of this started blowing up. I think it started blowing up in like November, really. But she definitely crossed a line the other day. And I don't even encourage you to go look at it, but I will say, without word for word, she compared being a Republican nowadays, she compared that to being a Jewish person in Nazi Germany. I don't know if you've seen this. It's like, yeah, there's just no excuse for that. There's literally no excuse. And if you're that ignorant, you can't expect to hold a high profile job. You just can't. This is not a subjective thing. The other stuff like we're Trump supporters or whatever. We can go back and forth on that. It's one everyone has the right. You don't have the right to be that hateful. I mean, you do. It is your First Amendment right. I'm not trying to argue that side of it. But you don't have the right to then complain when you can't hold down a high-profile job. And hilariously, like in Hollywood, that's the worst route to go. You're not going to be able to come up with an excuse. No one's going to put up with that. And so now she's officially gone. And hopefully you don't have to hear about Gina Carano anymore. But of course, people are saying they're going to boycott Disney. And I saw some of these coming across. And I was like, you know what? Before, when she was just like, Trump's great and all, it's like, okay, fine. you want to get mad if she gets fired. What you're saying is that you agree with her, and that's just, there's no excuse for that. I don't even, when I saw it the other day, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. But people think that they can do these things, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. And they can, but you can't then complain. You know, if I went out and said something like that, and every single subscriber left the podcast, and I lost every single patron, I'd have no one to blame but myself. You know? I mean, come on. All right, this next one is actually fairly important. Talked about this a couple weeks ago, one of the newest challenge that's been flying around, and I was very and I pointed out maybe if guys are doing it, what, certain things they could be doing. And that's the hashtag silhouette challenge. But I do want to get serious for a moment because it was like a day or two after I had talked about it on the podcast. So hopefully you're aware of this if you're someone that was doing the silhouette challenge. But some editors came out and other influencers at warning everything I said, we're warning women. It's like, well, no, warn both sides, but warning people that had done the silhouette challenge that there's editing software that you can take the video from what is it, TikTok or whatever they're using, and then you throw it in, and you can actually edit out the red filter. So in essence, revealing much more of the person that's doing the challenge than that person had intended. So keep that in mind. I doubt we have a lot of listeners that participate in something like the silhouette challenge, but if you do, be careful, because chances are someone can pull that video, and then if you're scantily clad or wearing nothing, but you're covered by shadows and red light, that can be removed, and suddenly you're out there on the internet wearing nothing. It's crazy. If you don't want, and by all means, if you want to put yourself out there, but if you don't want to be completely revealed out, maybe just don't do it, filter or not. Just don't do those things. It's just, be safe. It's just smart. All right, this past week, I can't even remember which day, it doesn't matter. We had hashtag National Roast Day, and I know this is quite the trend that goes around on the social platforms. And in fact, for some reason, my Punk Rock Dads group went through like a week of dudes are like, roast me, and posting. I'm just like, really? And I see this so much where people are like, roast me, and they post. I'm not going to touch that one. I never touched that one. By all means, if you want to get roasted and you want to have someone insult you, by all means, go for it. Just not for me. The roast stuff is not for me. And I have no shame. It's just not something that appeals to me by saying, hey, look at me, and now everybody insult me. In effect, I do this every week. I put myself out there, and there's plenty of people that insult me because I do get some hate mail. But I'm not, the roast thing I just don't get. But apparently this past week was National Roast Day, and Wendy's was having a lot of fun with that because apparently I think it's also a bit of a double entendre because you roast someone like the comedy bits or roast like a roast beef, a roast beast, as they say in Dr. Seuss, So hopefully you came out unscathed if you decided to participate. It's moderately unscathed, I guess, if you decided to participate in that one this past week. Not for me. And of course, hashtag How Bad Days Start. Hashtag How Bad Days Start. This one is floating around on the social platforms. Search it. Just get some comedy out of it. I like to include these fun ones. And I will tell you, for me, hashtag How Bad Days Start is a screaming toddler. Screaming toddler. Or sometimes getting smacked in the face while I'm just waking up from bed. Because often my toddler, my daughter will get into bed. Like, she'll get out of bed and she'll come and jump into bed. And I'll still be laying. I'm like half asleep. But she'll like roll over and be like, and not hit me on purpose, but and I'm like, what's happening here? Oh, okay. I'm just getting smacked in the face by my 4-year-old. All right. And of course, Valentine's Day posts. I mentioned that at the top of the episode. Everyone has to, and share away. Like, share that you love your significant other and it's Valentine's Day. What I have been really appreciating is a lot of people are sharing posts of their cat, particularly people that don't have a Valentine on this fine Valentine's Day. So they're posting pictures of their cat, and I really enjoy that. I'm enjoying the cat posts more than the couple posts. I mean, by all means, like I said, share photos of you and your significant other, but the cat posts are what I'm interested in today on the social platforms. And of course, last thing in digital trends, if you didn't see this one the other day, I'm sure you saw it. It had me cracking up. The cat filter lawyer. And I will tell you, this is funny. because I was listening to the radio and I was doing some work the other day, and they talked about it, and they actually played the audio from it. But of course, I'm listening to the radio, so I couldn't see the visual for it. So in my head, I'm envisioning like one of those silly like cat filters where it's still your face, but it's putting like cat ears or cat eyes or whiskers and stuff. Like my kid loves to play with those on Facebook and on we use Duo. That's how she'll video chat with family. She has a couple friends that she'll video chat with, and they love to like get the filters on. So I was envisioning something like that, and I heard the lawyer say like I'm not a cat, and it was funny. But then a couple hours later, I was scrolling through, and suddenly the video popped up on my feed, and I went, "Oh my God!" It wasn't like cat ears and funny whiskers. He was a straight up cat, like a cat, a cat. It was a full on cat, and the lips were moving. And the greatest part was, if you haven't seen this, like you could see it tracks your eyes, whatever filter this is, and you could see him like looking down, like, oh God, what do I do here? What do I do here? But the important lesson here, now, my daughter's only 4, so I'm gonna be dealing with more of it as the years progress. But I don't let her touch this thing. I don't let her. Maybe she's probably gonna start touching the old Surface here now that we've got a new one, but I don't let her get in on that thing. We have another tablet that if she does, we sit and play a game together on the tablet. There's like some Daniel Tiger games and stuff. That's one thing. I don't let her touch the other things. But if you do, make sure, especially before you go into, like a court setting, that you check the filters. It's just kind of common sense, because once you get in there, you never know what's going to happen. And there's always funny things, like, kids running into frame and stuff is one thing, but just check your settings before you go into a court case over Zoom. Oh, man. It was, I wish, like, I could convey that feeling of, like, oh, yeah, that's funny, and then being like, oh, no, that's crazy funny. Like, just the elevation of how funny it became. Oh, so good. So good. Oh, COVID. We got some COVID updates. I got to be honest. I even wrote this here. I'm honestly tired of talking about COVID. I know we all are. We're all experiencing COVID fatigue, everything else. The bottom line, and this is all I'm going to say this week, we just have to hold fast. We got to hold fast. We're getting so close here. And I'm going to be really curious to see the numbers nationwide in Southern California a week from today, because that puts us 2 weeks from Super Bowl Sunday and people having Super Bowl parties. But we just gotta hold fast a little longer, and we'll get to the end. Continue to stay home, wear a mask, and for the love of God, don't fear the vaccine. Just trust scientists, get the goddamn vaccine. My wife's working on. Well, my wife's grandmother is getting her 98 years old. She's getting her first dose tomorrow in Florida, and then. We're actually dealing with trying to get my father-in-law vaccinated, because he's well within the realm of the age group. It's just a matter of finding appointments and everything else. So please just stay home, wear a mask, and get the vaccine when you can. Get the vaccine when you can. Simple as that. And hopefully one day sooner than later, I'm going to stop talking about COVID, just at least on the podcast episodes. All right, mental health. Still many challenges, as you know from my episode 2 weeks ago. I don't want to get into it ridiculously, but still lots of challenges with family. My wife is experiencing the brunt of it. I'm really just giving as much assistance as I can, but there's so much to sort through, after someone passes, and it's fun. Not funny, haha, but it's funny because you'll be going through something, or even like my wife will be sitting on the couch and she'll go, "Oh my God. I didn't even think about that." So many things like phones and credit cards and bank accounts and just so many things to get through, and it's been a bit of a challenge, and especially getting family settled, because now my father-in-law has come from Arizona now to Los Angeles. Fortunately, we have a guest house. He doesn't, so we're still able to quarantine, but he's going to be splitting his time between Los Angeles and Florida. So I've had that challenge, using caution as much as possible, but the challenge of giving him assistance, but still staying separate because we're not in the same bubble, and keeping that, the quarantining separately, and then hopefully once he gets his vaccine, we're getting there, but as far as my own mental health, that's been a bit of a challenge, and we're not through it yet, but It's just something we've got to get through. And everybody deals with these kinds of things. So, it's just the challenge of it and the tax that it can have, on your mental health. And my wife, same thing. Just the tax that it can take, the toll it can take on your mental health. This one's personal, but man. So I don't know if you saw in the news like a week ago, maybe a little more than a week ago, there was a couple of FBI agents killed in South Florida. 2 of them, to be exact, and a couple others injured. And this one, for me, it hit me hard for like a day, and not because I knew those agents, but if you're familiar with my backstory that I've shared a little bit of on the podcast before, my uncle and my godfather was shot and killed. He was an FBI agent in 1986. Was shot and killed in Miami, in a suburb of Miami, not very far. I mean, not next door, but not very far from where this incident occurred. And immediately when I saw that too, and my godfather is one of 2 killed in 1986, and I was very young, but it is something that's always stuck with me. I still have memories of riding around in FBI cars for like 2 weeks, walking in the funeral procession, just all kinds of crazy stuff. So it drudged those up for me. And in fact, as I went to look at articles, and I was just curious, what's happening, getting information, every single article I read mentioned the 1986 Miami firefight, which it's kind of known as the Miami firefight. If you're interested in at all, take a look at that. Just Google 1986 FBI Miami firefight, anything along those lines, and you'll see. But this one, it got me. It's a definite trigger for me, and drudged up a lot of memories, and that one sat with me quite a bit for a few days. I mean, that still sits with me throughout my entire life, but definitely drudged some stuff up for many, many years ago. And especially, I talked about it on the podcast a couple of years ago because this was drudged up by somebody making a speech and talking about my godfather's children, of which he didn't have any, nor his partner, Jerry, who also didn't have any children. I would have been the next closest thing to anything resembling a child for Ben. But that's why these things tend to hit me, is whenever this comes back up, triggers me, hits me in the gut for a couple days, and then, of course, we move on past it. But just recognizing those things, I think, and that's why I bring it up, is just to recognize those things and know that sometimes you're going to run into these things. Sometimes you never fully heal from certain things, but all you can do is practice self-care and get to the other side of that. And in fact, had another one this week. So as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I might not have been able to record last Sunday. I woke up last Sunday with like a little bit of a toothache. By Sunday night, it was not terrible, but it was like I couldn't chew on one side of my mouth, and I'm going, all right, this isn't normal. And it kind of started to feel better, and then Monday night, I was like, no, this is bad. And of course, I'm avoiding going to the dentist in general. Like, I haven't had my teeth cleaned in a year because of COVID. It's not worth the risk for me. So I had to bite the bullet. No pun intended. And on Tuesday, I had my wife drive me to the dentist. Talk about anxiety going in. The interesting thing is, I found once I got in there, and this is just valuable information for anyone out there that's kind of been avoiding it. Especially, like, if you're in pain, don't go for elective stuff or whatever. Actually, once I got inside the office, it felt quite safe. And I think, depending where you are, like a doctor's office where they're and especially a dentist office where PPE is a normal thing, I actually felt quite safe. They took my temperature before I could even walk back to like the room with the chair in it. And the dentist, like, it's got a face shield and a mask and everything else, and my wife's dropping stuff in the kitchen. That one definitely picked up on the microphone. But doing everything I can. So I actually felt, once I got it was the anxiety of going in, but once I got in, felt quite secure. And then, of course, they look at it. He's like, you got a little thing, and he gave me a little medicine. He's like, it'll clear up. You go home. And so I went home, started feeling much better. But it was an interesting couple days, to say the least, and the toll on my mental health. And it's one of those things where, you have certain instances where, you're kind of putting something off, or that it can trigger you. And then you get there and it's like, yeah, this is horrible. This is stressing me out. This is giving me anxiety. And then you also have times like this. That was the dentist for me, as I was dreading it and driving there. I'm just like, oh God, okay. And then I got in there. And I was like, this isn't so bad. There's like nobody around me. You know, they had 2 chairs like ridiculously far apart, and there was no one even in the waiting room. And I filled out my paperwork, went straight in, and it was actually not as bad as I anticipated. So I definitely built it up much more than it had to be, and I survived. So got through it, feeling better. All right, some positive news here. Positive news. You may have seen this one, but Nike came out with some brand new sneakers. We're not talking about Jordans or Air Force Ones or any of those crazy awesome Back to the Futures. I still want those Doc Brown. I'm not a Nike guy, but I want those Doc Brown Nikes that from the original film. They redid them a couple years ago. I do want those, but none of those. These are actually some inclusive shoes. They are meant for people who have certain disabilities and are differently abled. And basically, what it is you can put them on and take them off without bending down to tie them, do anything. And I encourage you to check them out, even if you're not someone who might need these inclusive type shoes. They're just very cool to see. But the positive news side of it is people are going to be able to avoid pain and frustration and stress with these shoes. It's literally you step into it and it like, whoosh, and then you step out and it just kind of pops up and it's in and out. And it's not just like slip-ons. These are better like sneakers, because yes, you can do that with sandals. You don't have to bend down and tie. Essentially everything that you would get out of a tied sneaker, but you don't have to bend down and tie it. And I know for a fact, in fact, I have a friend who has a son who has issues and has had his entire life, and because of those issues, tying shoes can be a problem. And I know for a fact that he is very excited about these shoes and not having to deal with that on a daily basis. So good on you, Nike. Happy to see this. And apparently it was somebody that came and said, can you make a shoe like this? And Nike made the shoe. And we often take for granted, those of us that you don't think about those things until you see it in front of you, and you're like, oh my God, that's fantastic. People are going to really benefit from this, and these shoes are definitely a case of that. So good on you, Nike, and hopefully a lot of people out there will be able to get these shoes and make their lives easier. All right, parenting. Oh boy. I don't have a lot of this stuff, but I do want to bring this up, and then I'm going to brag a bit at one point here, because parenting stuff brought up some old memories. But it's funny, my wife and I, we often talk. So I've mentioned Punk Rock Dads, which is a dad group that I'm in on Facebook. And then my wife is in a couple of mom groups, but one in particular that's like a local mom group. And they have funny stuff too, but it's, it's moms passing around, passing back and forth information. There's a meme going around too, where I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like mom groups on Facebook. Oh my God, my child fell down the stairs. And then, it's like moms responding like, oh my God, are they okay? Oh my God, why were you watching them? Oh my gosh, what, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like dad groups, LMAO, like laughing my ass off. And it's like, yeah, that is fairly accurate. And this came up the other day because my wife was like, oh, it's something that was being discussed in her mom group. She's like, oh, do you guys talk about that stuff in your dad group? And I was like, no, not really. And I pulled up one of the more recent videos that was posted in that group. And if you've seen this video floating around social platforms, it's the dude giving himself a mohawk using Nair and duct tape. And I was like, no, this is the kind of stuff we got in our group. Very funny. In all seriousness, there is serious topics in there as well. But it really had me laughing, because it's like the differences between mom groups and dad groups. Now, of course, it does get serious. I've been involved in some serious conversations. People looking like dad's looking for advice. Dad's just going through tough times, whatever it might be. So it's not to say it's all joking, but it was just funny in that moment. Like the last thing I had seen from my dad group was a dude giving himself a mohawk using Nair. I don't recommend using Nair. I don't know why that stuff even exists. All right. I am late to the game on this one, but Zootopia. We had movie night in the O'Rourke household last night, and my daughter picked Zootopia. She hadn't seen it yet. I hadn't seen it yet. I think my wife had watched it on an airplane a couple years ago. It's been out for a few years. I think it came out not long after I left Disney. It's a Disney movie, and luckily we got Disney Plus. But I was like, I figured I would enjoy it. I was so pleasantly surprised at how well done the movie is. And here's the thing: I said to my wife, because I'm like laughing through the thing, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's great, that's great." And then like halfway through, I turned to my wife and I was like, "This is fantastic," but it's all low hanging fruit. But they have taken these low hanging fruit jokes and they have put them together extremely well in this universe that is Zootopia. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It actually touches on some serious topics without getting too, dark or deep. Fantastic film. If you have kids and you haven't seen it, highly recommend checking out Zootopia. If you don't have kids, highly recommend watching it by yourself. This is definitely one of those films that doesn't have to be enjoyed by just kids. There's a lot to it. So again, I know I'm very late to it, and some especially parent listeners out there are gonna be like, "Dude, we've been watching that for years." And it's like, I know, but I finally got to it, so I'm gonna mention it because this is my podcast and I'm yelling at a wall. All right, one more thing here in parenting, and it's me just bragging a little bit. So we were rewatching the original Disney sing-along that they made like when COVID first hit, hosted by Ryan Seacrest. And it's funny because I did this before and I'd totally forgotten about it when we watched it months and months ago. And then I was reminded as I was watching with my daughter, and I turned into one of these, like, I got to peak dad, I think is what happened. Because there's a part in it where the cast of High School Musical jumps on to sing "We're All in This Together." Now, when I was at Disney, I knew most of the High School Musical cast really, with the exception of two. I've met and dealt with them a couple times. But with the exception of two and that would be, sorry ladies, that would be Zach. I'm blanking on his last name, and Vanessa Hudgens. Didn't do a lot of work with them, but Monique, I knew Monique really, really well. Did a lot of work with Corbin and his dad, and did a lot of work with Lucas. And actually, one of Lucas's producers is actually a good friend of mine. So I'm like waxing nostalgic. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to work with, and then I knew this happened, but then Boo Boo pops up. If you don't know who Boo Boo is, Boo Boo was he was in T Squad. When I knew him, he's a little guy, sponsored by Gibson, a kid musician, and then he went on into acting, and he's actually part of the X-Men universe. He's in X-Men Days of Future Past, but that, like, Boo Boo I knew really well, and this is where I got into a little story with my daughter because I had T Squad playing a concert, opening for Jonas Brothers at Magic Mountain. I don't know if I've ever told that story, but this is the same night that I was almost killed by a mob of screaming 12-year-old girls. But Boo Boo's there. And Boo Boo's dad, his name is Stomper. He actually was a wrestler, a WWF wrestler in the 1980s named the Mongolian Stomper. And we actually developed quite a friendship working together because, his son was in a band and everything else and did quite a few events with them. But we developed a friendship. And then, so I'm telling my daughter this story, and I remember that particular time at Magic Mountain. I'm standing like right outside the green room at Magic Mountain, where they have this big stage at the back of the park, and I'm talking to the director of marketing for Magic Mountain, and suddenly I feel behind me a gigantic arm come up and put me in a headlock. So I'm going, oh God. The director of marketing, she just like, what's going on here? And I turn. And it's it's Stomper, the Mongolian Stomper, putting me in a headlock as his way of saying hello. So I reached peak dad at that moment because I was like, yeah, I was put in a headlock by a dude that wrestled Hulk Hogan. And while I was talking to the director of marketing at Magic Mountain, and keeping the green room closed, because at that time, this was years ago, and at that time, this is Jonas Brothers are meteorically rising. Miley had risen, and Miley was Miley's in the green room. I'm telling you, I almost died in a crush of 12-year-old girls trying to get the Jonas Brothers out of the park. Stages at the back of the park, they had to get to the front of the park. I mean, yeah, let's just say I've seen very large security guards throw some elbows. And that's the only way I'm still alive today. All right, some common sense now that we've tangented on my my glorifying story of being put in a headlock by a former WWF wrestler. Yes, like peak dad, just peak dad. As I'm saying it, I'm like, oh man. Like there's some dad gods out there like, oh, like he's reached it. It's just going to get worse as I get older. I'm going to be sitting there with like a pipe and like, back in my day, telling kids about the glory days of punk rock. All right, some common sense. Why are shower heads so complicated? This is another adventure I've had to deal with. Let me fill you in on this a little bit, wall fans. So like a week ago, maybe a little over a week, about a week ago, I go turn on the shower, and my daughter, I'm putting some TV on for her. My wife's working here in the studio. She's sitting in here working with the door closed. So I turn on the shower, and I'm going to check up. And I'm like, okay, I put TV on for her, and that's when I can take a quick, like, 5-minute shower. So I'm checking with her, and all of a sudden I hear this, like, poof. You like that sound effect? Poof. No, I don't even know what I'm doing. I need a little sound effect board here. Like maybe that'll be something we add to the studio. But I hear this, like, crash again. I'm like, what the hell? And I kind of figured it was the shower, because I also heard, like, gushing water. And I'm going, oh, geez. And my wife comes popping out of the studio, and I just see her. She's like, what's going on? And I look. I'm like, something's wrong with the shower. The shower head had shot off of the thing. It's in the holder, but we have one of those, like a handheld shower head that you can pull off and with the cord. Shot off, hit the wall, and there's water just shooting full speed against the wall of the shower across the, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ. So I turn off the water. First thought in my head is like, well, shit, I'm glad I wasn't in the shower yet, because I probably would have got knocked out by the shower head flying through the air. But then, of course, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Can't really take a shower in here. Now, fortunately, we have another shower. But like, it's just all this is happening as I'm doing this. And then it turned into like a comedy of errors, because I went to pull the one out of my other shower, out of our smaller bathroom, put it in there, and I cracked that thing, like trying to pull it out. I'm like, well, that handheld shower head's broken. Luckily, I had another shower head, so I threw that one on there. But then, of course, and here's the thing, is I definitely had one of those I told you so, because I've been telling my wife. And I'll tell you why. Like, the shower head we have, it wasn't good. I could tell it wasn't good. And in fact, a couple years ago, like, the tube for the handheld thing just busted. Like, and that's why I kind of, like, went straight back to that, because I heard this. And a couple years ago when it happened, I had the shower running, and I wasn't in there yet. It was warming up, and I hear this, and water's gushing because the tube, like, busted. It's coming out of the tube. Putting a tube in there and everything, that's replaced. So, like, dealt with this so much. And I told my wife, we need a new shower head. The shower head's not great. We need a new shower head. She would have felt terrible had I got knocked out by the damn thing. But luckily I wasn't in there. But then, so I've got the temporary fix. But of course we got to get a new shower head. So that's where it just gets ridiculous. And this is compounded by the fact that I live in California. Those of you who don't live in California, there's federal restrictions on shower heads. Yes. Living in a fucking Seinfeld episode. Like, literally, Seinfeld episode. For those of you that have seen Seinfeld, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's federal regulations, and then California has even more ridiculous regulations, which I don't have a huge problem with. But here's what happens, is when you go to look for shower heads, you can't tell any of the sites to filter by California. So my wife is like, oh, this is a great shower head. Goes to click and like, can't order this in California. Can't order this in California. So she's dealing with that stress, and I'm at a point where I'm like, I really don't care. Just get a damn shower. Like, I don't care. Get the damn shower head. And then eventually the thing comes, and we ended up getting one. But it was like one thing after another. And in fact, that's what killed me before, is this is just showers in general. When I first moved into this house, I couldn't get the shower to work. So it's got this like little extra plug thing that you have to turn, because we have a rainfall and a thingy, like a regular shower head, but you got to pull it out. So this started the day I moved into this house. I didn't know. I had to call the realtor, have them call the previous owners, and they're like, oh, no, you pull, don't turn. I'm like, oh, okay, my bad. Well, water pressure was getting bad a few weeks ago, too, and it just kept getting worse, and I'm like, what is going on? And I'm in there one day, and I start futzing with it, and suddenly I realize, like, it's not in all the way, and I just pulled it out, and I just started laughing maniacally, because I was like, I thought our shower was destroyed. I thought we were going to have a plumber in here, but no, just needed to pull this stupid thing out. Now, of course, the increased water pressure is probably what made the shower head pop off, but, like... That's home ownership. Like, owning your own home is fantastic until stuff like that happens, and you're like, well, shit, I can't just call someone to come fix my shower head. I got to figure it out myself, and I'm not a freaking plumber. I'm not a plumber. Although, to be fair, yes, I get it. Don't send me stuff like you can't put on. Yes, I can put on a shower head. It's the matter of getting the shower head and figuring out what the hell I'm allowed to have here in California. Random food deliveries. I got to share this with you guys because, as I said, the challenge the past few weeks has been the food. And it's slowed down a little bit, but we were getting these meal trains, and there's like, here's some carne asada fries for you. And like, oh, Jesus, here's some Thai food. Like, oh, my God, here's whatever. Like, and I appreciate it, but I don't want to gain weight. We're sitting here watching the end of the Super Bowl last Sunday, and my Ring rings, the Ring doorbell, and I'm like, who's coming to my house right now? And I go to look, and there's like a guy at my gate holding bags, and I was like, hi, what's going on? Is that a food delivery? He's like, yeah, and I was like, oh, cool. And we have like, this is where I tell people to leave food or packages when I see them. I'm like, oh, just set it right there. I go in and look, and there's 2 big bags of Zankou chicken. For those of you that live in Southern California, you know how, if you don't know and you live in Southern California, go experience the greatness that is Zankou chicken. And I'm like, oh, okay. Fortunately, we hadn't started making dinner yet, but apparently someone had sent us food, and I had to have my wife go check, and she goes, oh, yeah, no, someone did send us food, and just random food showing up. I mean, I'm not complaining. Not complaining at all. It was great. We ate it, but it was kind of hilarious. You got track your food orders. Got to keep track of all that stuff. Just because you never know. You never know when food's going to show up. Oh, computer shopping. I know I said I was going to touch on this, but I want to common sense a couple of things here. My computer shopping became a comedy of errors because I tend to do a lot of research and go through, and I'd finally decided, like, nope, we're getting the damn computer. And then I was figuring out, all right, which credit cards we're going to get the most points on, everything else, and I've got it all sitting in the cart, and it was sitting in the cart overnight, and the next day I was like, all right, I'm going to go pull the trigger through Microsoft, and I go to order, and it's like, out of stock. Like, I was futzing with this for 2 days, and it was sitting right there, and now it's out of stock. So I go through, and I'm talking to a Microsoft rep, and they're like, yeah, I don't know. And kudos to Microsoft, because the rep I was talking to was like, oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry. We don't know exactly when it's coming, but what I can do is take your email and let you know exactly when it's coming. Sure enough, I got an email like 2 days later. Here's the thing, is that the next day, after I was unable to order it, I decided to go through CDW, if you've ever heard of CDW, and ended up getting a better price through CDW. So I get it through CDW, get the email and everything, and it's just one of those things where you get all the way and you're like, okay, this is perfect. It's almost like you've been working on a paper or a book or something, and you're like, this is perfect, and you go to click save, but before you can click save, it's like, nope, and just disappears. Like, that was kind of what happened to me, but did end up getting it. And as I said, I'm still a big fan of Microsoft. And then the transferring of stuff, and that's why we're not on the new machine right now, is because of transferring all of the settings and everything else over to the new machine has been quite the task. And not just because of transferring files, but if you're a Microsoft user, Microsoft has discontinued a bunch of things since the last time I got a new machine. And so, like, I actually had to get different programs. And in fact, Microsoft Office, they got rid of like the old. You basically have to have Office 365 now, or like Office 2019. And I was running 2013, had a license for it, and I was like, oh no, I'll just download it to my. Nope. They're like, we don't do this anymore. Thanks. Same with Movie Maker. We don't do this. Like, really? Okay. I guess it's my fault, but okay. That you stop support for everything. And of course, new hardware. And I've always recommended Surface because they are backward compatible. And they really are. But the problem is, because I went from a 3 to a 7 Plus. So that is a big difference. So had to upgrade some of the hardware, which is what we're going through right now. And I will say, and I'm going to complain for a minute, Microsoft Complete. This is the one thing that made me mad with Microsoft. I spent an hour and a half on the chat with them the other day because I was trying to add Microsoft Complete, which is just it's additional warranty, for your machine. I think I know Apple has a thing like that, and Microsoft Complete, you can get it on like certain computers. You can get it on Xbox. I saw that as I was going through it. For some reason, they were having technical issues with the Microsoft Complete. I'm literally talking to a Microsoft rep, and I'm like, it won't let me purchase. It's giving me an error message. And they're like, oh, that's strange. Let me try to purchase it on your behalf. And oh, I'm getting the same error message. And it's like, well, can you fix this? And they're trying to fix it. And I'm like, and as I'm doing this, I'm sitting there like, I'm just trying to give you money. Can you just take my money? And even if you can't give me the exact thing, here's where technology can sometimes be a problem. So you remember the 80s before like sliding credit card machines? It was now I've worked retail quite a few times in my life, and you always had one of those machines around. So if the network's down, you take an imprint of the credit card. And I'm thinking of this as I'm talking to them, because I'm like, can you just take my money? And even if you can't update the system, can you just like write it down like, Sean has Microsoft Complete as of blah 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 blah? It's like, why? I just want to give you money and make sure I have additional coverage on my machine, just because you never know what's going to happen when we spend I'm spending on a new machine. You want to have that protected when it fails from technology. All right, before we get into some entertainment news, I have a very, very special common sense announcement. It's not quite the day yet, but in just a few days, we're going to be wishing a very, very, very happy birthday to the one and only Paul Smith, a.k.a. Zombie Teeth, a.k.a. official photographer and artist for the Barstool Preachers. I'm not going to give his age out on this episode, but I will say it's a big one. It's a bit of a milestone. I'm not going to throw rocks, glass houses and all, because I'm not far behind. That's that particular age. But very, very happy birthday to you, Paul. I know you'll be listening to this, and I hope, despite quarantine, that you can make the best of this birthday. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you in a few days on your actual birthday, but this is the last episode before your birthday, and we don't do a ton of birthday announcements, but Paul is a very big friend of the podcast and a very big proponent of mental health and mental illness awareness. So very, very happy birthday to you, Paul. Entertainment news. Movie theaters. There's some movie theater chains, specifically in the U.S. and South Korea, that have started doing rentals for gamers. And apparently what you can do is you can rent out an entire theater for up to 20 people. I assume these need to be like kind of in your bubble people, but up to 20 people in a theater. And you can play games on the giant movie theater screen. The one caveat is you have to bring your own console because movie theaters, they don't have a bunch of consoles laying around. But for literally as cheap as like $100 for 2 hours or something like that, or $100 for an hour, it was something like that cheap. You can rent out a giant theater and play video games on like a whoa screen. Now, if I was a gamer, that'd be pretty appealing. I'm not a gamer. Play Clash of Clans, that's about it. But look into that and check out the movie theater rentals for gamers and see if maybe that's happening in your area. It looks like in the U.S. and South Korea. That's where I'm seeing this happening. So I don't know if there's any options outside of those countries or areas. In fact, I didn't see a lot of opportunity in California, but check that out. See if it's something you're interested in, something you might want that could be available. Could be a way to enjoy your quarantine time and still get out and about and do something, but do it safely. The Redwall. There's an author named Brian Jacques who wrote the Redwall series. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but wrote a series definitely geared toward kids. I read them when I was like 11, but we got an announcement from Netflix that there's a Redwall movie and a series coming. This is basically like medieval, but all the characters are like mice and animals. 11-year-old Sean is losing his mind right now. So if you're a Redwall fan, I read them like crazy as a kid. If you're a Redwall fan, keep an eye on Netflix because, like I said, there's going to be a movie and a series. I believe the movie is going to be the very first book of the series, and then the television series is then going to kind of move its way through the books. I have high hopes for this one. Obviously going to be animated, but like I said, 11-year-old Sean losing his mind. Eve 6. That's right. Eve 6 is one of my guilty pleasures, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't even want to say guilty pleasure. I say listen to what you want to listen to. I've been an Eve 6 fan since their first album, like 97, 98. No, maybe later. I don't know. Like late 90s. Yeah, definitely late 90s because their second album was like 2001. But Eve 6, I'm not even going to talk about the social media stuff because there's just too much to keep track of. But they did announce a new album that is coming out. The album is going to be released June 25th, and they released a new single this past week called Black Nova. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the single. It's just not really my style of music necessarily, but I am a bit of an Eve 6 fan. So we'll see how this album ends up coming out. But if you're an Eve 6 fan, check out the single. I think it's on Spotify and everything, but it's definitely on YouTube. I watched the video. They have a video for it, and watched the video on YouTube. All right, and one more thing that I will leave you with this week. As you can see, if you're watching the video feed, as you can see from my shirt, I am wearing my Bassists Against Racists shirt. This particular iteration is the Bungle Preacher one, where it says kick racism in the facism. I believe I mentioned these before. The artwork is all done by Paul Smith, aka Zombie Teeth, in collaboration with Chaos Merch, and that's Gabby Chaos from the Venomous Pinks. It's her merch company, and the idea was all started by Lynn from Bad Cop, who came up with the idea of this bassist against racist line. Of course, I had to have the Bungle shirt. I own like every single Barstool Preachers shirt design there is out there, and it's a double whammy because I get to have a Zombie Teeth design on my shirt. And they're doing a new one every month with different artists, which I believe I mentioned that before. The cool thing is right now you can pre-order, for the month of February, you can pre-order the Gabby Chaos version of the Bassist Against Racist shirt. I actually got to jump on Chaos merch here soon and pre-order mine. And the other cool thing is part of the proceeds actually goes toward BLM. Goes toward Black Lives Matter. So if you purchase a shirt, part of those proceeds is also included in a donation to a worthwhile organization. So kind of double. That's like a quadruple whammy because you got Chaos merch, you got the amazing Zombie Teeth, you got Lynn of Bad Cop, one of the best bassists around there, and I mean Gabby, also one of the best bassists around there. Not to mention her fantastic merch. Big Chaos merch fan. So check out Chaos merch. Check out the Bassists Against Racists line and try to collect them all. They're going to be doing one a month. So in 2 weeks there's going to be another one, and you won't be able to order the Gabby one anymore. So make sure you do that before the end of the month if you're interested in, really each month if you're interested in that particular artist. All right, that's going to do it. I knew we were going to go way over time this week. I just, week out of the studio and me patting myself on the back and just and just ranting a little bit, rambling and ranting. You got to love the ramblings and rantings of Go Tell It to the Wall. But like I said, that's going to do it for us. We will be back next week, same wall place, same wall time, possibly with a live stream. The live streams are coming. It's just a matter of if we can get everything set up here in the studio, so look forward to that. I will definitely let everyone know in advance if the live streams come back. That way you can make some time to tune in if that's something you want to do. But we will be back next week. This has been... Oh, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at SoCalSean. Like our page on Facebook.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. And also YouTube. Head over to YouTube, search Go Tell It to the Wall, subscribe to our channel. And most importantly, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Check out some merch. Get yourself some merch. Let's see some Go Tell It to the Wall shirts. More of those out there in the world. But make sure, either way, follow, subscribe, do the things. This has been episode 35 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. I am, of course, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And remember, Wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.